What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another soundtrack reaction, and we're returning to the soundtrack to Akuma no Riddle, an excellent anime from 2014 based on a serialized manga that came out in the years before that, though the English language version of the manga, which is where I first discovered the franchise, wasn't published until after the anime was released, just to make the chronology here in the intro very confusing. In any case, the soundtrack is done by Fujisawa Yoshiaki, and we're going to listen to the tune Sadness Reflected in Her Eyes, which is a very painful, poetic type of title. I think it most fundamentally relates to one of the two main characters, Tokaku Azuma, or Azuma Tokaku, who has a very painful past that we don't fully know, we the audience, at the beginning, though we keep getting flashes to it, and I think she herself has some repressed memories about this, and it's only fully recalled or shown to us, the audience, as the show goes along. And I think there's maybe one or two other characters, including the other main character, who you could perhaps apply the title phrase to, though in the case of the other main character, she tries to remain relentlessly optimistic and positive, despite her life being just as painful and just as brutal from the time she was very young. So, yes, I do think this relates to the Azuma character, but I think in a show where there are many young people who've come from painful past and who are engaged in violent, indeed lethal assassinations that are in some cases carried out despite complicated feelings, I think it is a track that could apply more broadly. But yes, I do think it is specifically targeted toward the main character Azuma, so let's give it a listen. This is by series composer Fujisawa Yoshiaki from the Akuma no Riddle soundtrack 2014, Sadness Reflected in Her Eyes. What a tune. I love how there's a variety of ingredients here. We have a straightaway cello lead, I think, as well as some violin support, but then we also have like a synth keyboard lead, and yet also some true piano in there. There's sections which have a more orchestral feel, but then, and including the last part that we heard right before it ends, there's a couple sections that have more of a music box or like snow globe type of sound. So I like the way it goes big and then smaller, the way it has a more natural but also a more electronic sound. There's that deep and, what's the right word, electric bass line that comes in about halfway through. It's not like a pervasive element. You only really notice it in that middle section especially, but that's a very nice surprise when it comes in. So yeah, it sounds electronic, natural instrument, symphonic, electronic. It has some different flavors along the way, but it really does convey a sadness, a melancholy, perhaps a pessimism as it relates to human nature and what that means for individual lives, and certainly the life of Azuma Tokaku. So yeah, it's a brilliant show, and I think the soundtrack is fantastic. I'm still sort of digesting it. Ultimately, I have not listened to the soundtrack nearly as many times as some of the J-drama soundtracks I'm going through, so I'm just going to sort of pick and choose random tracks as we continue through this, but I'm very much enjoying the two that we already heard and looking forward to more. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.